episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 463, Overjoyed. The episode begins with Ash and the gang walking through Fennel Valley, finally having arrived there, the new location of the Battle Pyramid. Ash was extremely hyped up for his rematch with Brandon, and he was determined to be the overall winner of the Battle Frontier, because this was the last battle he needed to win to be done with this challenge. As Ash and the gang approached the Battle Pyramid, which they saw in the distance, in a whole valley of trees, they saw none other than Scott waiting for them already with the local Nurse Joy, who was responsible for the Pokémon Center in Fennel Valley. Nurse Joy instantly came running up to Ash, almost like she was obsessed with him or some shit, and pulled out a photo album, asking him to sign it. As Ash examined the photo album, he saw that it contained pictures from all of his major battles that had been recorded, specifically all of his major battles at the Pokémon League. That involved every single one of his home Pokémon, including Pikachu, Corphish, Torkoal, Glalie, Sceptile, and Swellow. Ash was shocked by Nurse Joy's pure insistence for Ash to sign, and he embarrassingly did, getting a little embarrassed because Nurse Joy just couldn't stop getting super excited. Scott said that Ash shouldn't be embarrassed at all. He should be hyped, because Nurse Joy absolutely loved Pokemon battles, and the fact that she chose to admire Ash should have been an honor. Scott also added that Nurse Joy really cared for Pokemon contests too, and at that, Nurse Joy excitedly pulled out another photo album containing pictures of May and all her Pokemon participating in contests, including Munchlax, Combuskin, Eevee, and Squirtle. And Nurse Joy excitedly asked May to sign this photo album. And May did, really liking the photos of herself at the Indigo Plateau. Brock, on the other hand, was getting jealous. Ash and May were getting attention, but he wasn't. So he started to blush, going up to Nurse Joy, trying to get her attention, as he grabbed her hands and explained that he came all his way to Fennel Valley just to meet Nurse Joy, although Max pulls Brock away by the ear as punishment for simping. Scott assumed that Ash must have been looking to battle Brandon if he showed up at the Battle Pyramid, so he unfortunately explained that Brandon was currently busy researching some nearby ruins and couldn't battle yet, leaving Ash disappointed. Nurse Joy didn't want to see this, so she offered to let Ash and the gang stay at her Pokemon Center while they waited for Brandon, explaining that it was nearby, and they could totally rest there if they wanted. This excited Ash and the gang, especially May, hoping that maybe the Nurse Joy would have pictures of her inside the center or some shit, and they all went to the Pokemon Center. As soon as they arrived at the Pokemon Center, Nurse Joy clarified that it was a bit different from your regular one. There were a whole bunch of other facilities inside of it, so they went inside, and Nurse Joy showed them all the facilities, such as an exercise room that had a whole bunch of different exercise equipment, as well as a contest hall type of area. That was essentially a huge-ass battlefield. He was amazed that there was a whole contest hall in the Pokemon Center, and Nurse Joy explained that she put one in so that trainers on the go, who were coordinators, could practice their contest skills. And she even had pictures of various contests that people had done inside her Pokemon Center before, which she showed May, and she also showed May several more of pictures of May in contests and all that. She then introduced Ash and the gang to her Chansey, and together they showed Ash and the gang the hot springs and the battlefield of the Pokemon Center, leaving Ash and the gang amazed by all this shit. And Nurse Joy talked about all the numerous battles that had taken place before at her Pokemon Center on this very battlefield, and bragged about how she was a judge for some of them. Ash was very intrigued by this battlefield, and asked May if they could train together as a warm-up for his upcoming rematch with Brandon. However, May declined, as she was desperate to try out the hot springs instead. So, Nurse Joy suggested that she could battle Ash instead, and she asked Chansey if it was down to battle with her. Ash was kind of shocked because he had never pictured Nurse Joy's battling, but he was excited at this prospect. Nurse Joy then admits that the reason why she was able to battle was because she used to be a Pokemon trainer before becoming a Nurse Joy. And with that, she has a brief panicking moment when she realizes she still has one more thing to do to prep for the battle between her and Ash, which Ash accepted. She had to take off her Nurse Joy hat, so she had Chansey do this, and this essentially unlocked a way more fired-up personality for Nurse Joy, ready to battle, since she wasn't confined by having to worry about taking care of Pokemon for the time being. Ash and gang were startled by this sudden Nurse Joy transformation. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were wandering around Fennel Valley, looking for Ash and the gang to spy on them and steal from them, but much to their frustration, they were just getting lost, essentially just wandering around the area. They were so bored from just wandering around that Jesse decided to yell at James, blaming him, saying that they should have gone a different way than he suggested to find them, although James rebutted that Jesse was the one telling them where they should go, so it was her fault they were lost. Meowth got really annoyed by Jesse and James bickering, and tried to listen out for Ash and the gang, or just something other than Jesse and James yelling. Eventually, Meowth does hear something, as does Wobbuffet, and he and Wobbuffet lead Jesse and James to a bush, which they all crouch behind to see Ash and Nurse Joy on the battlefield about to battle. Jessie immediately got hyped up and congratulated herself on finding Ash and the gang, although James tried to remind her that she didn't find jack shit. It was Meowth who did, as he let Mime Jr. out of his Pokeball to spy on Ash and the gang with them. Anyways, back to the battlefield. Brock declared that he was going to be the referee and stood in the middle of the field, while May held Pikachu, and May and Max sat on a bench on the sidelines. Chansey then took off her nurse's hat, causing her to become as fired up as Nurse Joy was. So she was ready for battle too. Ash and Nurse Joy then stared each other down, trying to intimidate each other, while May commented on how differently Chansey and Nurse Joy were acting, as Ash sent out his Corphish and started off the battle between Corphish and Chansey, with Corphish using a crab hammer, which hit Chansey on the head, but Max noticed that the attack didn't seem to do too much. May agreed, but added that Corphish still hadn't lost its spirit, even after the attack didn't do too much. Just then, though, Nurse Joy had Chansey use Double Slap, which did much more damage to Corphish than Corphish did to Chansey, which Max commented on. However, Ash was enjoying this. He liked the thrill of being backed up against the wall, and he told Corphish to use a Vice Grip, but before the attack could be used, Nurse Joy countered by having Chansey use a Dynamic Punch, which was a lot stronger, and knocked Corphish back, leading Ash to tell Corphish to try a Bubble Beam next to attack Chansey, but Chansey was virtually unaffected by this attack, just standing its ground, not moving at all. Nurse Joy then had Chansey use a Double Edge, and it slammed into Corphish, knocking it to the ground. Although Corphish was able to get back up quickly, not wanting to disappoint Ash, and Ash had to use a Crab Hammer again, while Nurse Joy had Chansey charge up a Solar Beam. Since the Solar Beam took quite a while to charge, Corphish managed to land multiple Crab Hammers on Chansey, but these Crab Hammers didn't do much at all, and Chansey was able to fire off the Solar Beam, sending Corphish flying back and knocking it out in a huge explosion. Shocking May and Max and Pikachu by Chansey and Nurse Joy's sheer power, as Brock officially declares Corphish unable to battle, and Nurse Joy the winner. Nurse Joy and Chansey then do a little victory speech and congratulate each other, while an explosion occurs behind their backs, somehow. Maybe it was built into the stadium. She and Chansey then put on their nurses' hats again, which removed their super fired up personalities, and immediately they were back to their Nurse Joy healing personalities. So, seeing Corphish injured, they immediately grabbed hold of him and put him on a stretcher, rushing into the emergency room. Ash and the gang followed Nurse Joy into the actual Pokémon Center area, and while they did, they commented on how different this Nurse Joy was from all the other ones they've met on their travels. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were still spying on Ash and the gang from some bushes, and they had seen Nurse Joy battle with the Chansey, and they thought Chansey was extremely, extremely strong, and began to have a boss fantasy of how Giovanni would love Chansey, going into detail, saying that Giovanni would be very impressed when Chansey could both stand up to him in boxing, so Giovanni could get a whole bunch of boxing training in, and then, if Giovanni ended up getting injured or sick as a result of boxing too much, Chansey could heal him up, and this would make Giovanni so happy that he would give Jesse and James promotions. So Team Rocket cheered at this, and they all decided that they were going to try and steal Nurse Joy's Chansey. We then cut back inside the Pokemon Center, where Ash and the gang were waiting on a bench outside the emergency room for Corphish to be recovered. Ash was thinking deeply about his upcoming rematch with Brandon. May and Max were too, and were wondering what Ash was planning to do in his rematch with Brandon differently than the first time, so that he wouldn't lose like last time. With May also stating that his recent battle with Joy's Chansey proved that power couldn't be matched with power, so just because Brandon was powerful didn't mean Ash could simply just try and beat him with more power. Ash was kind of depressed, clueless as to how he was supposed to beat Brandon, he realized. However, Brock tried to motivate Ash, saying he needed to try and turn his defeat against Brandon and his defeat against Nurse Joy into something positive, and use the battles as learning experiences. That's what was important. Just then, though, Nurse Joy came out of the ER with Chansey and confirmed that after her treatments, Corphish would be fine by tomorrow, fully recovered. And Ash got to see Corphish resting on a stretcher being pushed by Chansey. Just then, Chansey saw something and ran towards it. It thought that it was a Blissey, and got intrigued by this obviously, since Blissey was its evolved form. However, unbeknownst to Blissey, it was actually Wobbuffet in disguise, so when Chansey went to investigate Wobbuffet, Jesse, James, and Meowth revealed themselves and attacked Chansey, and tied it up and ran off with it. Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy were shocked by this, even more shocked when Corphish jumped off the stretcher bed and revealed that it thought that it was fine and didn't want to rest anymore, because Chansey had literally just been taken by Team Rocket, and it wasn't even fighting back. Soon enough, Team Rocket made it outside to where their balloon was waiting, and they were carrying Chansey tied up, although they were surprised that it wasn't fighting back, despite it being super strong, as they had observed previously. They shrugged this off, though, and continued to go to their Meowth balloon, when suddenly the wind knocked Chansey's nurse's hat off her head, and it landed on Jesse's head. Since Chansey didn't have its nurse's hat anymore, this magically fired up Chansey again, and she was able to battle for real now, because it's like she could only battle when she didn't have her nurse's hat on, because she didn't feel obligated to not injure anyone. And she battled Team Rocket by attacking them with a solar beam to blast Team Rocket off, angrily, mad that Team Rocket would even think of capturing her. Nurse Joy and Ash and the gang had come outside by this point, and Nurse Joy congratulated Chansey on the really strong solar beam, although she questioned where Chansey's hat had went, which led Chansey to realize that its hat had landed on Jesse, who was now blasting off. However, while Team Rocket was blasting off, Jesse did not want to have a remnant of their defeat, and angrily threw down Chansey's hat, and it landed back on her head, which calmed her, taking her out of her battle mode and back into her healing mode. Also, she was a lot less angry now that she had her hat too. Later, back at the Pokemon Center, Brock was trying to flirt with Nurse Joy a little bit by successfully grooming her Chansey, while Nurse Joy watched, very impressed with Brock's grooming skills. From behind a tree, May was watching as well, commenting to herself that Ash and Brock were working really hard to achieve their dreams and goals, but she wasn't, because she didn't know what to do next with her life, now that she lost the Grand Festival. Although, Max came up to her and told her to stop thinking like that, trying to convince her that she would come up with something to do eventually. Even later, when the sun had fully set, we then see inside of the Fennel Valley ruins where Brandon was. He was currently staring at an ancient tablet and trying to figure out how to unlock its secret by shining some flashlights on it to try and get a better look at it. Just as he finally realized what he should do to unlock the ancient tablet, Ash ran up to him, because he had been looking for Brandon to request a rematch now. But he started by just greeting Brandon and asking how the search was going in the ruins, with Brandon confirming that everything was going good by demonstrating how to open the ancient tablet, which involved placing his hand on the tablet and rearranging the symbols on it, because he realized that each symbol was code for something, and if they were all rearranged in a specific order, then something would unlock. So he managed to arrange the symbols in the appropriate order due to being an expert with ruins. And once he rearranged all the symbols, a slab came out that said, as it rotated electronically, weirdly. As the sleeping light comes to our planet, the sky and Earth will reverse. Ash was confused about what that meant, so Brandon clarified that it was a riddle that was supposed to lead him to a place in the ruins called the Sealed Chamber. That was the location of a special, rare Pokemon. Brandon then said goodbye to Ash, claiming that he had to go get this rare Pokemon, but Ash stopped him, requesting a rematch, although Brandon said that he would only battle Ash if Ash had trained hard enough, and he asked if he did, and Ash confirmed that he trained really hard. So Brandon agreed to battle Ash before he went to capture the rare Pokemon. Ash was happy with this, and got super hyped up and confident about how he was going to win and all that, but Brandon told him to stop that, reminding him not to get carried away or too overconfident, because that was what allowed the King of Pokelantis to possess Ash in their last battle. Ash then apologized, and Brandon asked him if he wanted to know what Pokemon he would be using in their battle, as thanks for Ash's apology. Ash confirmed he did want to know, so Brandon admitted that he would be using not his Regirock in this battle, but his Registeel, leaving Ash confused, because he had never seen or heard of the Pokemon Registeel before, but since it was named Reggie, he assumed it must have been related to Regirock in some way. Brandon and Ash then leave the ruins to go prepare for their upcoming battle, with Brandon going to prepare the battle pyramid, and Ash going to prepare at the Pokemon Center. He even calls Professor Oak with his friends, and asks him for any information about Registeel, so he could figure out what Pokemon he should use against it. Assuming that Oak would know, because, he was a smart professor, right? Oak revealed that Registeel was composed of a metal not found on Earth, and confirmed that Registeel was a steel type. So Brock suggested, hearing that Registeel was a steel type, that Ash should use either fire, ground, or fighting types to defeat it. Ash made Professor Oak wait on the phone for a while, but after a little bit, he made a choice, and officially declared this to Oak, saying he knew who he wanted to use, and Oak said he could make any of Ash's Pokemon work. He didn't need any of them at the moment. So Ash was about to get back his Torkoal as his Pokemon he chose to use, since Torkoal was a fire type, although Oak reminded Ash that since he already had 6 Pokemon on his team, he had to send back one of them. And Oak wondered which Pokemon would be sent back to him, leading Ash to confirm that he would send back his newly captured Aipom that Oak would be seeing for the first time. Ash then sent Aipom out of its ball to show it to Oak, leaving Oak confused as Aipom was all over Ash, jumping on him. Regardless, Ash recalled Aipom and put it on the Pokeball transfer machine, and transferred Aipom to Oak's lab in exchange for Torkoal, as Oak confirmed that Torkoal was a great choice, since it had just learned a new move recently, so it would be good for Ash to try it out in battle. Ash wonders what this new move could be, and how he could implement it. As we see, Aipom gets into Professor Oak's lab, and be very confused as to why it was suddenly not with Ash anymore. And he thought that Professor Oak had kidnapped him or something, so when Oak tried to friendly greet Aipom, Aipom pounded Professor Oak to the ground. The next morning, Brock, Max, May, Nurse Joy, and Chansey had woken up, and they were all waiting for Ash after Brock, May, and Max had said that Ash's battle would be today, and they wondered where he was, and if he would be late for the match, when suddenly Ash showed up, running, almost out of breath, as he admitted that he was doing some last-minute training with all of his Pokemon, including his newly reobtained Torkoal, in order to test out Torkoal's new move, which he had found out was Heat Wave. Ash and Torkoal and all his other Pokemon were very much ready for the battle now, after all that training, and Nurse Joy and Chansey asked if they could come watch, and Ash agreed. So with that, Ash, Brock, Max, May, Nurse Joy, and Chansey decided to go to the battle pyramid. We then cut inside the battle pyramid, where Ash had arrived, and now Brock, May, Max, Nurse Joy, and Chansey, along with Scott, who had showed up, were sitting in the stands with May holding Pikachu, while Ash and Brandon were standing on opposite sides of the battle pyramid battlefield, staring at each other, as the referee, Samuel, announced the rules, declaring that it would be a one-on-one battle. Samuel then told Brandon to send out his Mon first, and Brandon had no problem with this, because he had already revealed his Mon to Ash. He was telling the truth as he sent out his Registeel. Brock, Scott, May, and Max, and Nurse Joy were amazed seeing a legendary Pokemon like Registeel in person. And May scanned Registeel with a Pokedex as Samuel told Ash to send out his Pokemon, and he sent out his Torkoal, making Max excited as he exclaimed that Ash had the type advantage. Torkoal was a good choice, and Scott agreed, saying that Ash was really using his head this time and playing by the book in terms of type matchups, and that would probably work in his favor. Samuel then officially declared that it was time for the battle to begin, and Ash started off the battle by having Torkoal use a flamethrower, which hit Registeel pretty hard, making Max, May, Nurse Joy, and Brock, and Scott extremely happy, although Brandon didn't panic whatsoever, as he simply had Registeel charge in with a Metal Claw, although Torkoal was able to dodge and use a Body Slam to knock Registeel over, leading Ash to compliment Torkoal on his skills, and Scott even had to remark how well Ash was doing. Brandon, however, didn't lose his confidence and told Registeel to use Zap Cannon, leading Ash to tell Torkoal to stop the attack with Flamethrower, so the two attacks collide, causing an explosion that doesn't damage either Mon, which Brock, May, Max, and Scott were all very impressed by. Brandon had a surefire way that his Zap Cannon would not miss, though, as he told Registeel to use Lock On first, which locked on to Torkoal, basically cementing that the attack would hit for certain. The attack did hit and managed to paralyze Torkoal, but since Torkoal had actually used Iron Defense, this reduced the damage that Zap Cannon actually did. So Torkoal wasn't critically injured, it was only paralyzed. Regardless, though, May, Max, Brock, and Scott were still worried for Ash, as was Nurse Joy, but Ash simply told Torkoal to use Body Slam. Although Registeel tried to counter with Metal Claw, basically trying to hit Torkoal before it actually slammed down on it, but before the Metal Claw could strike, the Body Slam hit Registeel, and this caused the paralyzation on Torkoal to spread to Registeel, and basically make Registeel paralyzed too, preventing it from launching another Metal Claw because it was so tired. Scott, Nurse Joy, Chansey, Brock, Max, and May were all immensely impressed by Ash's strategy, as was Brandon, but he told Ash not to get too overconfident, because he saw that Ash was very pleased with his own strategy as well, and he ordered Registeel to throw Torkoal. Registeel did this, but Ash countered by having Torkoal use the wall to redirect another Body Slam. Basically, Registeel ended up throwing Torkoal, but Torkoal bounced off the wall and used Body Slam on Registeel to knock Registeel down. Brandon was genuinely impressed this time, and figured that Ash must have had another trick up his sleeve that he wasn't showing yet. He genuinely had respect for Ash now, and figured he was pretty strong. Ash confirmed that he did have something else up his sleeve, an attack that Torkoal had recently learned while at Professor Oak's lab, Heat Wave. May, Brock, Max, and Scott, and Nurse Joy were happy to see Heat Wave for the first time, although it didn't do much to Registeel, even when it started to burn it, because Brandon quickly got serious and had Registeel break free from the attack by blocking it with its arms, which shocked everyone. So Ash quickly changed tactics and used a different fire attack, Flamethrower. While Scott couldn't help but admit that he was very impressed by Brandon's battle skills, and Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy remained stressed. The Flamethrower didn't do much to Registeel, because Brandon had Registeel use Sandstorm to make the Flamethrower dissipate and trap Torkoal in a sandy vortex, which impressed Scott even more, as Brandon told Registeel to keep the Sandstorm up and just use it continuously, which frustrated Ash until he came up with an idea, having Torkoal counter the Sandstorm with a Heat Wave, which was able to push the Sandstorm back and off of Torkoal. Also, the overheat had infused the Sandstorm with flames, and the Sandstorm was pushed back onto Registeel, essentially trapping Registeel in a flaming Sandstorm, which impressed Scott. Registeel tries to use a Zap Cannon from inside the Sandstorm, although Torkoal dodges by jumping, and then, under Ash's command, goes inside the Sandstorm and uses Body Slam, and the Sandstorm essentially strengthens the Body Slam by making Torkoal spin rapidly, and hit Registeel, making Registeel spin too. Nurse Joy, May, Chansey, and Max were a bit confused about what Ash's strategy was, since Torkoal would just get injured in the Sandstorm, but Brock and Scott explained that Registeel would be taking a lot more damage, because he would be getting damaged by the Sandstorm, and getting damaged from Torkoal's Body Slam. However, Registeel managed to withstand the Body Slam, and used Lock-On, followed by a Zap Cannon, meaning that the Zap Cannon had to hit Torkoal hard. Although, in the process, the Zap Cannon had basically charged up the Sandstorm, and got spread all around it, so it caused the Sandstorm to explode, which affected Registeel as well. When the smoke from the explosion cleared, both Torkoal and Registeel were still standing. However, Registeel kneels down to the ground, about to fall down, clearly exhausted, which made Ash and the gang excited. They really thought that Ash was going to win, and Registeel would go down first. But suddenly, Torkoal, even though it appeared good before, fell down to the ground, defeated, leading Samuel to officially declare Brandon and Registeel the winner, and Ash and Torkoal the loser, leaving Brandon and Scott impressed by how well the battle was fought, while May, Max, and Nurse Joy were a bit disappointed in Ash's loss. Ash was a bit disappointed as well, as he called Torkoal back, but Brandon then went up to him and admitted that he was impressed by how well he fought, and stated that Ash was close to being able to beat him. He just needed a little bit more training, and Brandon would gladly take on Ash and his Pokemon once they learned to fight better and as one, telling Ash the one thing he still had to learn, which was that no matter how skilled the trainer was, the battle came down to how skilled the Pokemon were, so they had to focus on really training with their Pokemon, and that's what Ash had to do more than anything. With that, Ash and the gang, Nurse Joy, Scott, and Brandon all go outside of the battle pyramid, while Max commended Ash on learning quite a bit, even through his last two losses with Brandon, while May was still kind of concerned about what she was going to do. Ash had a set path and stuff he had to learn, but he didn't know what she had to do. Anyways, Brandon then clarified that he was about to set off to go to the sealed chamber in the ruins and find the special Pokemon that he had been searching for, and clarified that Ash could challenge him to another battle when he returned, and Ash got a little more training in, and said that when Ash did battle him, he would likely have to challenge this new Pokemon that Brandon caught. Brock tries to flirt with Nurse Joy again while Ash was talking with Brandon, but Max drags him away. The episode ends with Brandon and Samuel leaving for the ruins together, and Brandon gives Ash a thumbs up for leaving him when Ash promised to train for his rematch with him, and Brandon would see the results of more of his training, for sure. And Ash stares at Brandon as he leaves, as well as the battle pyramid, determined to win against Brandon in his next rematch with him, while Scott, Brock, Max, and May examine the battle pyramid too.